Today, here in UnVeiler Community, our topic is a creative rest practice. Each month, we either take a particular topic and we dive in and we discuss it, or we apply something and we do a practice for, something that we do together and then discuss, which is what we're doing today around creative rest, which is an active form of rest in the appreciative rest category. So, in the unveiling method, I teach 7 forms of rest other than sleep, because most of us, as we know, when we get into burnout, sleep is the first thing that gets completely disrupted. And here's the sort of tough news, the bitter pill sometimes is sleep is the last thing to come back online when you start restoring. And that was really challenging for me. So I started to explore, well, if I'm not sleeping, what can I do to feel better? And that's where I began to put together and really saw that there were 7 forms of rest that I could energize or restore myself with. And one of those is appreciative rest. And that is taking in and appreciating the beauty around you. And today, a creative rest practice is the active form of appreciative rest, where you're creating by painting, writing, sewing, singing, playing an instrument, all of those active forms of creative rest. And so I'm going to share, you guys just kind of think through this with me, and I'm going to share my screen so you can follow along here. Because I think sometimes it's so much easier when you can lay your eyeballs on something. So there's signs of an appreciative nourishment depletion. So if we're thinking about appreciative rest, how do we know if this is something that we need? So number one is focus on the needs of others and you don't consider your needs a priority. If this is happening, you're probably experiencing some depletion in this area. Talk yourself out of self-care as if you don't deserve being cared for. A lot of times it's like, I just don't have time for it. I got to go do these other things. I'll do it later. Sometimes that's even how we approach it. Feel you're being selfish whenever you consider doing something for yourself. It's like, oh my gosh, but so and so needs this more than I need to do this for myself. Often you can feel your work is not of value or that others do not appreciate your contributions. Find it difficult to enjoy things in nature or in your environment. Maybe you just don't pay attention. I did that for a long time. I didn't really notice the things around me. So these are some signs of an appreciative nourishment depletion in this area of rest. Just note which one of those really stood out most to you today. Keep that in mind because we're going to bring that into the conversation today before we get started on our practice of active creative rest. So let's reflect on a quick question together. Think about this for a minute. How are you creative in your life? So drop it in the chat box. How are you creative in your life? What are some ways that you express creativity? And I will pop the question in the chat box so that y'all can see it. Because sometimes I know hearing it isn't always going to do it. So let me pop it in the chat box. Here we go. How are you being creative in your life? I left that word out. I probably need to add it. But you know what I meant, right? How are you being creative in your life? If you feel like you're not being creative in your life, share that too. Oh, I love that. Designing outfits and interiors on Finch outfits and Finch homes, definitely. I have been finding my creative rest definitely doing that. It has been fun. Okay, so let's look at the next question here. What's your favorite way to express your creativity? So this can be any time in your life, anytime along your journey. What's your favorite way to express your creativity? For me, it's always been designing, like our physical, like interior design, because I'm such a nester. I guess it's kind of perfect that I love my burb in our Finch app. But what has been your favorite way to express your creativity? Is it crafting? Is it cooking for other people? That's definitely my mom's. My mom's is creativity has always been in the kitchen and cooking. Ah. Definitely interior design for you too. I love it. You love to cook. Yeah. So think about that when you're expressing your creativity in your favorite way. How does that make you feel? So how do you feel when you're being creative? What do you notice? Oh, dancing. Yeah. So how do you feel when you're being creative? When you're, ooh, hand building pottery. Yeah. So when you're designing an interior or you're cooking or you're hand building pottery or you're dancing, how do you feel when you're being creative? Oh, comforted. Yes, definitely. Focused and in a flow state. Most definitely. Oh, I get that one for sure. Oh, it's beautiful. So I want you to pause for just a minute. Think back to that list that we went through around appreciative rest, signs of depletion, when we're not getting enough active creative rest. I want you to think about something. What do you notice when you haven't spent time creating like you'd like to? Add that in the chat. Let me know. What do you notice? Or what do you notice in reflection when you haven't spent time creating? I know for me, one of the things that I notice is I tend to be a little more irritable. Like I don't see as many possibilities. I tend to get a real narrow focus when I don't allow space to be creative. Less hopeful, definitely one that comes up. Yeah. Dead-ended emotionally. Ah, okay. So creativity for you has been a place where you connect emotionally. That's a big one for me too. It's a really good process to connect with our emotions to allow space for them, especially if you're like me and pushed them down and told them to be quiet or go away most of your life because they didn't feel safe, even the good stuff. So think back to that list and I'll pop it back up on the screen real quick. Which one of these signs of depletion are you noticing most in your life right now? What's coming up for you? Drop it in the chat. Because I guarantee you, you're probably not the only person. But one time I had all of those. Feel like work isn't of value. Yeah. Talk yourself out of self-care as if you don't deserve being cared for. Absolutely. Okay. So now it's time to have fun. Now we're going to get to the play part, which I love. But I wanted to share something with you. I love this quote, and I'm going to drop it in the chat too, because I know it's kind of long, but I thought it really spoke to what we're sharing together today. And let me type in the person's name. Now, I might be pronouncing this wrong, so I'm just gonna hope that I say it correctly, or at least, I don't totally butcher it. Here we go. So, Mirko Thum has this beautiful quote, and I really loved it. The present moment is the only thing where there is no time. I mean, think about how often we get pressured around time, right? So the present moment is the only thing where there is no time. It is the point between past and future. It is always there, and it is the only point we can access in time. Everything that happens, happens in the present moment. Everything that ever happened and will ever happen can only happen in the present moment. It is impossible for anything to exist outside of it. I thought that was a really powerful quote to share today because active forms of creative rest allow us to be in the present moment and to allow space for our mind, body, and higher self to align. How does that, what does that quote make you feel or think about being in the present moment?